Welcome back to this week's episode of the People's Success Circle podcast. I am excited to have Ashton Whitmoyer-Ober here as my guest today, also known as Enneagram Ashton, right? Is that what people call you, right?
Yep.
Yes. And your handle on Instagram is Enneagram Ashton, I believe, too, right?
Yep.
Okay. So Ashton is an expert in the Enneagram, both in personal life and also at work. And I've been in the world of human resources for a long time. And I like assessments because they really help us to understand not only how we're wired, but how our teams are wired. So I couldn't miss the chance to have Ashton with us today. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Thank you. So let's talk about, I just really want to start by having people understand how you became an expert in Enneagram. When did you first start using it? And honestly, I'd love to hear a little bit about what you did before and how the Enneagram has shaped your career.
Yeah, so I created Enneagram Ashton back in 2019. And it was really because I had just graduated with my master's degree in community psychology. So I'm a community psychologist by trade. And throughout my master's program, I learned about all of the different personality systems. But I was totally captivated with the Enneagram because you could use it as a tool to understand yourself and others, but also you can figure out why you do things the way that you do them instead of just who you are. So it's not about who you are, it's why you do the behaviors. So if there are behaviors that you don't like about yourself, you can use this as a tool to change that. Prior to getting my master's degree, or I should say prior to jumping all in with the Enneagram in my business, I was working in the field of domestic violence and sexual assault prevention. And I was helping programs and centers across my state develop healthy relationship programming. And so I really, again, just saw these two worlds combining where the Enneagram can be used as a tool for healthy relationships and being able to understand your spouse or your partner, your friends, your family members. And obviously, in my most recent work, I talk a lot about professionally and colleagues and leaders and supervisors and all of the above.
Great. I did not know that there was a master's in community psychology. That's so interesting. I interviewed someone else who has a master's in positive psychology.
Yeah.
Yeah, so cool. And I don't think I necessarily realized there were so many specialized niches within psychology. Appreciate learning that. That's super cool.
Yeah.
So tell me about what your business looks like today.
Yeah. So today I spend a lot of time speaking and traveling and doing corporate workshops and retreats. And it's just such a joy to be able to, I love to see change. So the second part of my degree, so it's community psychology and social change. So I just love seeing change and seeing those light bulb moments of people realizing that they are doing things because of a specific motivation, but then also seeing them start to understand the people around them a little bit better. And so that's just, really fun. I have a couple programs as well, but I spend my days mostly speaking, which is I consider it to be like the biggest honor of my life, that people want to hear what I have to say.
Yes, as a speaker, I totally agree with you. I get up the stage or just leave the room, whether it's a stage or not. And I think, it's like a pinch me moment. I believe I get to be doing this. I love it.
Yeah.
So how have you trained, or how do you train people inside corporations to implement or to learn more about the Enneagram?
So every team and every organization needs something like this. And that's because, and I know that you agree with me, that we get so caught up in the day-to-day of, the things we need to get done. Are we being productive? Are we meeting our goals? Are we, seeing change within the workplace, but we're missing the people? And I know that you feel the same way. And the Enneagram or any personality tool shows you that you're, putting in that effort to work with and understand the people around you. And so when you're able to, better understand your colleagues or your coworker, you're able to communicate better. you have less conflict because you're communicating better, and you actually are increasing your productivity because people are happier. And when people feel like they are understood or that they're heard or that people are actually listening to them, they're going to work harder. And so I feel like everybody could use this because it's just a way of showing your people, showing your team that you care about them and that you want to understand them on a deeper level.
Yeah, I totally agree. And when we think about it, like, as an HR leader, I'm always coaching leaders on how to set goals with people, how to follow up and give feedback and all these things. And knowing more about the person can help us lead and manage on an individual basis instead of
Hmm.
just assuming that everybody's the same and assuming if they're not like us, then
Hmm.
they're the problem
Yeah.
versus understanding just really the motivations and the styles that different people bring to a team.
Yeah, that's exactly it because we all learn on a different way. We all communicate in a different way. We all receive feedback differently. And so understanding somebody else's Enneagram type, like the way that I communicate as an Enneagram 2 is going to be different than the way that you do as a 3.
Mhm.
And, is the way that somebody else does as an 8. And the things that an 8 cares about is likely not the same things that I care about. And so again, we're going into the world, out into the world and out into our workplace thinking like everybody's like us, right?
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then we get frustrated when we're like, okay, well, I'm communicating this effectively, but
Yeah.
you realize that you're communicating it the way that you would want to hear it.
Mhm.
And the frustration doesn't need to be there. Like tools like the Enneagram can just really help in that sort of way.
Yeah, for sure. As I mentioned before we hit record, I'm certified in Gallup Strengths. And even as an HR leader, I feel like I've done almost all of the tools out there at one
Hmm.
point in my career. And, Gallup's research says that we have an employee engagement problem in the world,
Hmm.
not just the US, but right now the statistic is that 32% of employees are engaged at work. That's like
Hmm.
1 in 3 people engaged
Yeah.
in their work. But honestly, the flip side of that really relates to both Enneagram or strengths is that when a tool like this is not just done, but like implemented and people understand each other, that engagement rate goes up to like 77%. 77% are more engaged in their work when they feel understood, they feel valued, and they just feel like they are not a number, right? That people
Yeah.
actually
Hmm.
care about how they are wired.
And they want to learn about them.
Right. Oh my gosh, there's so much to learn. And for me,
Hmm.
even when I am not an expert in the Enneagram at all. In fact, I would consider myself a complete beginner, but I have taken the assessment. I know I'm a 3, but for me, even now that I know I'm a 3 and I read the different things that either you post or others, I'm learning about myself in
Hmm.
like what I'm like on a good day and what maybe I'm not like on a good day and
Yeah.
what things that I need to let go of or what things that are really part of who I am that fuels my success. And so
Hmm.
just the little bit I know can help me, to be the best version of myself and to understand the people around me.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So if someone, let's just say a company decides that this is a tool that they want to implement at work, how does that work? Is there like one specific Enneagram test out there? Are there versions of it? And then how does an organization implement it at work?
So the thing about the Enneagram is people love to, I should say the thing about our world really is that people love tests. Like they love to take a test. They
Yeah,
want
me
somebody
too.
else to tell them who they are. Like they don't want
Mhm.
to do the work. And myself included. Like when I first discovered the Enneagram, it was like, oh, I take a test and then I figure that out. But the issue with that is that tests are only about 60% accurate
Mm,
because we are answering questions in ways that we want other people to perceive us, even if we swear that we're not doing that. We are human, and so we likely are. And we're also answering questions based on our behaviors. And as we've
mm,
talked a little bit about, the Enneagram is about our motivations instead of our behaviors. So, for example, like if a test is asking you a question about how you feel about conflict, or like, do you avoid conflict or do you face it head on? So let's say, you say avoid, but the reason why you avoid conflict is actually related to your Enneagram type. And so, if you and I are both saying like, yeah, we avoid conflict, then it's going to score us similarly, even though we're different types.
Right.
And so that's
Yep.
a huge piece of the puzzle that like tests are missing and people are missing in general. So I always suggest like go ahead and take a test to start. Like obviously it's a great place to start, but
Mm-hmm.
don't just run off with those results and be like, "Oh, this is who I am," and now I don't do anything with it. And I do suggest tests that will give you a probability. So there's tests like the RHETI, which is the Riso Hudson Enneagram Typing Instrument, and that will give you a probability. So it will score you for the different types. And so I always say take your top 3 results and
Mm-hmm.
then dig deep into those types to really see what resonates with you. But again, like we don't like to be like, oh, I guess, like we don't trust ourselves to be like, is this who I am? But a huge piece of that is being able to really sit with it and see what kind of gives you that punch in the gut sort of feeling. Because like you said, like there are some not so great qualities of the types as well.
Yeah.
And so it's not always supposed to make you feel like warm and comfortable, and it's going to
Mhm.
make you feel a little bit uncomfortable at times.
Yeah, I would say that's totally true. I love how they describe it as like on a good day or not on a good day,
Yeah.
because we all have, I mean, I could seriously think within this week that I've acted like my Enneagram that's not on a good
hmm
day, right?
Yep.
And so how helpful is it to know an employee might just be having a bad day and they're
Right.
showing behaviors that are not their typical behaviors as well?
So beneficial.
So when an organization wants to implement it, is that the assessment you would have them start with?
So, yes, I always suggest. So, let's say that somebody comes to me and they're like, I want to bring the Enneagram to my workplace. I say, great. Like, what are you hoping to accomplish? Like, what are the results that you're trying to get? And if most of the time people are saying, better team morale or better communication, or we're experiencing a lot of turnover. So, like, how do we just gel together better?
Mhm,
And, the first step is always to get everybody to take a test to
mhm,
see again what they could be. And then we sit down and we'll go over like those results together.
mhm.
And the thing though, and you and I kind of talked about this before we started recording, but the key is to not just like take that information and just be done with it, right?
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
I always say to them, like, this can't be a one-time thing that, you're just like, oh, this girl came in and she talked about this and like,
Right.
I guess I'm an Enneagram 7 and they just, go on with their
Yes.
lives. Like
Yeah.
it has to be part of conversations. It has to continue to be part of conversations in the workplace, whether that's they're implementing it in their team meetings or in their hiring practices I've seen a lot of people obviously not use it to determine like who to hire, but
Mhm,
they want more information about them, upon maybe like onboarding. So there's just so many different ways that you can incorporate the Enneagram and the Enneagram language into workplace best practices.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, I say the same thing about Gallup Strengths. When people say, "I've taken the assessment and I'm this," and my question is then, but how are you implementing that in your
Yeah.
work, and what are you learning from it, and do people know it, and is there a way to understand like how the team works together, and then how do you implement that? Like we don't rate or review someone based
Mhm.
on their personality assessment, but there are definitely ways that we can leverage who we are to get the best results and really to have the most satisfaction in our workplace.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. And the best workplaces that I see that I've worked with are ones who are investing the time to continuously bring this up. So whether it be that they have me or somebody else coming back in a quarterly situation, or just being able to make sure that it's on top of people's minds. Like it's not
Mhm,
something that is going in one ear and out the other. It's something that they're making part of their workplace culture.
mhm. Yeah, for sure. One
And
thing
then
that
they're known as a company that cares about their people.
Yes. Oh my gosh, 100%. Because oftentimes, and I'm sure this happens with you too, oftentimes if someone does an assessment with me, they'll go home and be like, oh, I want my wife to do it. Right.
Yeah.
And it spills over in personal life, like my mom, my sister, my brothers, it would just help to understand other people too. So I know you teach organizations how to implement it. Are you usually working with a leader or the HR department? And then what are the steps that they take or I guess, what are the integration points that you recommend?
So sometimes it's HR that contacts me. Sometimes it is like a team lead or like a manager of people. Sometimes it's, some of these bigger corporate companies have like people managers, like they're part of the corporate culture, like of just wanting to better, the relationships among their people. And so it really just depends on the way that their workplace is structured on who is the one that makes the most sense. So for integration, it's really important that you get everybody on the same page first. So, some people might be coming in with some prior knowledge. Other times people might not even heard of the word before, And so part of it is kind of setting the scene of like, okay, here's what it is, and this is why it's important in the workplace. And then from there, it's talking about it on an individual level, like this is who you are. And then from there, the next step would be like, this is who everybody else is and how your type integrates with or connects with the other types. And then a lot of times from there, it's like next steps, or how do we continuously put this into our workplace or our systems or our procedures, and what that looks like in order to move forward.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. I mean, I think for me, especially when I'm starting a project with a team, I really like to find out how we're going to leverage who we are to contribute to that. Right. So not just like our work area contributing, whether it's marketing or accounting or whatever, but like what can our role be on the team based on the strengths that we provide. So Ashton, I know to supplement your work, you are an author who has written books on Enneagram. Tell us about those.
Yeah, so I have 3 books that I've written on the Enneagram. The first one is the Enneagram for Relationships. And so that one is very focused on 4 different kinds of relationships. So romantic relationships, friendships, family, and then in the workplace. And then my second book is called The Enneagram Made Simple. And this is just a really great book if you're starting out and you want to learn everything there is to know about what the Enneagram is, the foundations of it, and all of the basics of all of the 9 types. It's just a really great starter guide. The last one is called A Little Bit of Enneagram. And this is actually part of a series that Barnes & Noble did of these little tiny books. And so these are the ones that are like, they're little, I don't want to say pocket size, but they're smaller. And so it is a really great like reference to have on hand if you're just wanting to, carry it around or understand people a little bit better.
Is that yeah, that's interesting. I didn't know that Barnes & Noble had those, but that makes sense. And what an honor for you to get to be part of that series.
Very cool. Yes, very cool.
For sure. Ashton, you've been doing this for a while. And so I'm guessing you have some examples for us on when you've seen a workplace really benefit from you implementing a tool like the Enneagram at work. So can you share with us, an example of a time that you feel that it just really clicked and the results that team got?
I feel like I can always tell the difference in the workplaces where their people care about other people, because you can just sense the room's different, the people are different, they're more productive, they're having great conversations. And they're like warmer versus like these cold and sterile environments. So some of my favorite I've worked for a lot of companies, but some of my favorite companies have been the ones that I've been able to go back to, because that's when I'm like able to really see the change versus like the ones that I just speak to one time. Sure, they're like providing feedback to me and I'm hearing about how beneficial it was, but to actually see it tangibly is just really, really cool. So being able to work out differences, one company in particular that I'm thinking about is they just had a lot of confusion, I would say. I don't want to say issues, but a lot of confusion with a leader who was a specific type and leading in a way that was beneficial for them, but
Mm-hmm.
then at the cost of other people, right? And so being able for that leader to understand how their team needs to be led based on their Enneagram type, but then also for the team to understand how their leader leads and why that makes sense for them too. And so it is a lot of that like give and take, right? It's not like you need
Yeah.
to change your behaviors to fit your team. It's like, let's take these types and figure out how we can work better together. Another company that comes to my mind when thinking about this, they were experiencing a lot of turnover. Like they couldn't understand why people would, start working for them and then they would leave. And they started hearing chatter about, some expectations in the workplace or things that were happening that people didn't like. And so they brought me in to just get everybody on the same page and understanding. And then I met with them again 6 months later, and they had only had one person leave in that time.
Wow.
And I
That's
just felt like that spoke to like the essence of wanting to understand your people and also investing in them because they feel like they're important in your eyes.
yes. Yes, absolutely. That's huge because employee retention hits the bottom line of a company. So it's just such a,
Hmm.
I mean, turnover really. Retention
Right.
been the bottom line, and turnover really, really can hurt the profitability of a company. And so
Hmm.
I love to hear that that has been a positive tool.
One
Now,
thing that I'm working on right now with a company right now is they are missing some like fives and sixes, which they're like
mm,
the analytical ones. And so they are knowing that their team is missing a lot of that. And so they're a lot of doers and creative
mm,
people and their big ideas, but sometimes like the data behind that can be missed. And so we're working on like, okay, when they go to hire somebody, they're not going to be like, oh, I'm hiring a five and a six, right? But they're
right.
looking for people who are very logical and analytical and to fill those gaps. And then they're also trying to figure out how within their team, they can start to implement some more things to be able to step in those shoes a little bit more. And I just think
I
that's so cool.
I love that because really, when you go to interview, I always teach people to look for first assess what you need in the hire and then create questions to pull that out. So you don't have to say you're a five or a six by any means, but you could ask, questions about tell me about a time you analyzed a problem, what steps did
Hmm.
you take, etc., to start to see if somebody had those skills. That's awesome. I love it. Now, I also have a lot of entrepreneurs who listen to my podcast. And how would somebody personally, if they owned a business, use the Enneagram to help them discern how they work and what kind of other support they might need?
Yeah, it's really great at being able to outline these are my strengths and these are my areas for growth, right? Like I know that I'm really great at these things and I know that these I have to put in a little bit more effort. And your Enneagram type can tell you why that's
Mm,
challenging. So that is, and with your Enneagram type, it's like this is your biggest fear and this is your biggest desire. And so what is your fear that's causing you to, act or to procrastinate
mm,
or to not get your paperwork done or things like that. And so once you start to understand those things, then you can start to change those behaviors. I
mhm,
also, depending on the type of entrepreneur, a lot of service based clients or service based owners or founders are starting to use the Enneagram with their clients to better understand their clients. So let's say that there's
so
somebody
interesting.
who is a coach or something, right? And so they're
Mhm.
starting to use the Enneagram to better understand how they can coach their client. So there's just so many different, anywhere that there is a relational dynamic, the Enneagram is perfect.
That is amazing. I had not really thought about that, but now I do strengths with my clients, and
Hmm.
so I'm like, well, of course, it's so helpful to know how they're wired, and so that we can have that great working relationship. That makes a lot of sense.
Hmm.
For me, I'm the kind of person who starts a lot of things and works really. I work really fast. I'm an Enneagram 3, work really fast. I really I just really put a lot into what I do. And I definitely know I need somebody who balances that out and can kind of rein me in. And so I have someone on my team who can do that. And it's the best compliment to who I am because the way that she's wired helps me balance and kind of come up, shore up for the shortcomings that I myself have.
Yeah.
So I love having like I'm the creative kind of crazy go-getter and she's the okay, let's see if this is even realistic and put in the actual plan to how we're going to do
Yep.
it versus just kind
Yeah.
of dive in.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah. So I probably should have asked this in the beginning, but it just sparked because you said you did like the almost Cliff Notes or small version of the Enneagram. So for someone who doesn't know the word Enneagram or who has never experienced it before, how would you describe this to them?
Yeah, the Enneagram is what I call like an ancient typing system. It's very old and it puts people into 9 different types or 9 different lenses of
Mm-hmm.
the way that they view the world. And those 9 types, within those 9 types, you have your biggest fear and your biggest desire. So, like I mentioned before, the Enneagram is different from other personality systems like Strength Finders or DISC
Mm-hmm.
assessment or Myers-Briggs because it's talking about your motivation. So, the why, the how, and the reason behind why you do what you do. And so, again, you can have people who are doing the same behavior, but the reason behind it being different just based on their Enneagram type. So there are 9 different types. Again, you have your biggest fear, your biggest desire, and within those, then obviously you have like really great qualities about yourself
Yeah.
and then some challenging qualities about
Mm-hmm.
yourself.
Mm-hmm. And when you look at the 9, I have questions about this. I think more
Mhm.
now I'm personally curious. Is it pretty evenly spread? Like the world has a good even amount of all 9, or do you see different number types being more prevalent than others?
So it depends in the area that you're in. So, like when you told me that you were a 3, I wasn't surprised because a lot of entrepreneurs or entrepreneurial minded people tend to
Mm-hmm.
lean towards 3. And so that's really what it depends on. I would say that 4 is probably the most unique, but they
Mm,
also like their biggest desire is to be unique and special
mm.
and set apart. And so is that why? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Right. Maybe
Yeah.
how they answer the questions, like you said
Hmm.
before, if it kind of gears towards that. I'm so curious to learn more about it. So if someone's listening to this and they're thinking, okay, I have not considered using the Enneagram at first or at work, and I also maybe don't even know my own Enneagram type, where would you send them?
So I would obviously send them to me. So I would definitely check out my Instagram. There's a plethora of resources there.
Mm-hmm.
Enneagram Ashton. And there are a lot of great websites that are out there too. I mentioned before the Enneagram Institute. So that is also a really well established resource for people. But
Mm-hmm.
also, there are a lot of books. So, like I mentioned, my books, but there are a lot of books out there that are also a great place to start. But again, the important thing is don't just figure out your type. Or when you're reading a book, don't just, page to what your type is. It's important to learn about all of it and to do something with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And is on your Instagram, is there an assessment link there?
So I have a free self-assessment.
Okay.
So you can ask yourself the questions to really narrow down what type you might be.
Okay. I know you have a program coming up soon where you are talking about Enneagram at the workplace. You want to tell us a little bit about that and when and how people can find out more?
Yeah, so my program is called the Enneagram Advantage and it's teaching people the advantage of using the Enneagram in their work and in their workplace. And so I'm training other people how to use the Enneagram and to start implementing it within their own workplace or
Mm-hmm.
with their clients. So I do have a few entrepreneurs who have gone through the program who are using it with their own coaching clients or whatever that looks like for them. And so it's a 7-week program. It's live, like virtual,
Mm-hmm.
where every week I'm showing up and teaching and training you on a specific area. And doors will open for that on September 2nd.
Great. I will make sure that we include the link for that too. And so that people can learn, I just cannot stress enough how important it is to understand your employees for who they are as a person. it increases employee engagement and really helps people feel positive about their working relationships when they feel understood. And I know for me, it makes a huge difference with my team, my clients, and I could see that it would for the Enneagram too. So thank you so much for coming today and for sharing your insight. If you are listening, you can find out everything you need to know in the show notes. And Ashton, I just want to thank you for your time and for sharing all your wisdom with us.
Yes, thank you for having me. It was great to be here.